Hello and welcome to the September edition of the Comics Pals Book Club. The gang is all here. Tyler,
Hello.
Kale,
What's up, hot dog?
Marco,
I wouldn't join a gang.
and Sean, welcoming you to our gang as we are here to discuss the book voted by you all, the patrons. For this month, we're doing Batman White Knight and Batman Curse of the White Knight as chosen by me. So,
You or the people?
well, I'm the one who gave the people the ability to choose this book. And then they chose.
Okay.
You know?
Collusion.
No.
The lie of freedom.
The illusion of choice.
That's right.
What else are you going to choose? You're going to choose this or what were the other picks?
I think Berserk was an option. Surprised that wasn't
Berserk?
picked.
That's right.
Yeah.
Swamp
Infinite
in there?
Crisis or some shit.
Yeah, the people have spoken. They're letting you guys know where it's at. And it's at Batman. So this is Sean Gordon Murphy's Black Label offering. Sean Murphy is one of the, I would say, few mainstream writer artists who do it at the scale and scope that, really only the likes of Frank Miller and I think now Daniel Warren Johnson. And I'm sure, you could name, a handful of others, but those are the I think the primary ones. I'm sure Chip Zdarsky, you could also say that about.
Patrick Gleason.
Yeah. But Sean Murphy, this was his first time, I think, for the big two, writing stuff. I want to say that's correct. Because I know he had American Jesus, I think it was called.
Punk Rock Jesus?
Punk Rock Jesus.
Oh,
thank
Yeah,
you.
American Jesus, I think, was Mark Miller.
That was
Yeah.
Mark. That's the Mark Miller one. Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
But this was his first time, I believe, writing for DC. And it's a controversial book for sure. It was published between October 2017 and it wrapped up in May. At least the White Knight did, and then Curse went on from 2019 to 2020. And it's Sean Murphy's show. The only other contributors are Todd Klein on the letters and Matt Hollingsworth on the colors. It's controversial for a few reasons. So, first of all, let's talk about Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy is not well liked on the internet. And now I think, even in the more recent months, like now he's going to be a realtor and people are on him about that.
Yeah.
And so, and all these different kinds of things.
There's a landlord specifically.
Oh, land. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, it's a good business, right? My dad's a landlord.
Well, down with Marco's dad.
Keep that in mind.
You gotta eat.
Yeah.
You gotta eat your dad now.
Yep.
No, I eat the rich, not the stable income.
Well, if he's buying houses, gotta eat him up. Yum yum, eat him up.
Is that a little rascal? Is that an Our Gang reference? Did we go back to
It's something.
Our Gang?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
So, but at the time, in the 2017, time frame, the reason why people didn't like Sean Gordon Murphy is because they felt that he was courting Comicsgate.
That's right.
Yeah. And there was that whole controversy.
Wasn't it about his willingness to work with certain creators? Less so like the direct courting of or like outright support,
There was never any outright support.
right?
And when I say courting, I'm referring to like not demonstrably shutting that stuff down, saying that he had friends on both sides and that he's more of a listener and all that kind of stuff. He eventually, I think, did make a pretty blatant statement on the matter, but I think Sean Murphy's public perception of him was irrevocably damaged based on that. So people were worried, of course, that all of this and the kind of parts of Sean Murphy that they don't like would spill into White Knight. I chose this book because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was bold. I thought it was very different. Remember, this is when Black Label pretty much first started, and so we were getting a taste of what that could look like. And this was such a radically different depiction of the principal characters: Batman, Nightwing, Barbara, Joker, Jim Gordon, that I was into that. And I was willing to overlook what I'm sure will come up, which is dialogue that is not great. And probably fair to say on the bottom tier of the writer artists that you can think of who do big work across the industry right now.
I don't know if I
Yeah,
go
I
that
don't know
far.
about that. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well,
yeah.
I figured that would be the vibe coming into this conversation. But if you guys disagree, that's fine. Let's get right into it with our thoughts on the premise. I don't even want your overall thoughts yet. I want your thoughts on the premise. This is a Batman and a Joker who are essentially trading roles. Sean Murphy's Batman is jaded, he's angry, he's bitter. He's been doing this for a while. It's not getting better. And his loved ones and friends can see that something is deeply wrong with him. Meanwhile, the Joker uncovers these pills that allow him to become sane, and he decides to weaponize his sanity against Batman and hold his crimes up to the light of Gotham so that the people can choose who they want to be their White Knight. How do you guys feel about the premise?
Well, for me, even like outside of the premise, like I was a big Murphy fan. Like The Wake by Scott Snyder. It's
Yeah.
like a late Vertigo book by him. I was really into that. And just like his pinup stuff was real good. So when I heard Sean Gordon Murphy was doing a Batman book, I was like, yo, that Batmobile is gonna fucking slap. This dude can draw vehicles like nobody's business. So that alone I was into. And then once I learned of the premise of, like, oh, we're kind of like inverting the roles of, the Joker and Batman. The White Knight is not Batman, it's Joker. It was different enough for me to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm down to try that. I'm down to give that a go. So
Yeah, I think in similar fashion, the premise seems interesting. I think there's usually when it comes to territory about Batman being jaded or he's getting older about stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, you're trying to ape the edginess of, let's say, whatchamacallit, Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, and so I'm always skeptical about that kind of thing. And I think this takes a much different angle, which I really appreciate, in particular because of the introduction of Joker going sane, which, again, also something that, could be dicey and potentially something that could put somebody off. But when done well like this, I mean, you know what? I liked it. Cool.
I think overall, I do think it's well executed. I think by the premise, I wasn't sold. I think I sort of avoided this book mostly it was on the fringes of my radar anyway, but I think I sort of avoided it because of the Sean Murphy reputation that was boiling. And I didn't even know that much about him in the first place, but just the concept didn't do anything for me. I've been tired of the Joker for a long time, and reading a book where he's saying, well, I think my initial impression was that he was literally becoming a White Knight, like a white Batman. And I don't, reading that, I have no idea where I would have gotten that. So that was certainly I feel like this was even a less entertaining take than what I imagined it was. So I think I have mixed feelings about it.
Okay. I really liked Sean Murphy before this announcement. This was right around the time of one of my favorite books, something that I tried to get us to read for this, but it didn't work out. The people voted differently, but I really love Tokyo Ghost.
Mm. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
where I
yeah.
know him
Yep.
from too.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. And then The Wake also, as Tyler pointed out. So I was gung ho for seeing more from such a talented artist, and I didn't know that he could write. So I was looking forward to that. Premise wise, I think you guys know by now, if you're a regular listener, that I tend to like things to be in continuity. But because Black Label was new, I wanted to give it a try. And I would say I probably read more Black Label when it started than I do now because of that fact. But this book had all the makings of something that I would really enjoy. And I did. I think that the concept was executed perfectly. And it gives us a look at, at Batman and his supporting cast that's radically different, but I think informative of their relationships. And there were times at which I was surprised by the ways that Sean Murphy decided to take the story. And I like that. It wasn't always what I would have done, and that's fine. He's in the driver's seat, and I enjoyed being along for the ride. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the ways in which it's very, very different. So I think the first difference that's immediately noticeable is that we're dealing with a Batman who is a lot less concerned with the world around him than we're used to. It takes the concept of Batman as a tunnel vision, you know, uh, sentinel of justice to its extreme by making him not really even care about property damage, civilian damage, even Barbara and Dick, who are very much a part of this story, all in pursuit of the Joker. I I tend to be rubbed the wrong way by depictions of Batman like that. Because to me, Batman is very much his mission is a human mission. And I don't think that he's less human for doing this. It's just an extreme version of humanity. But we know that Batman cares about people. We know that he has loved ones. So when it first started, I was like, I don't really care for the way that we're being shown Batman right here.
It feels like a more extreme version within the already extreme version that is Batman.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
again, it feels like you ape on the Dark Knight Returns there, but I think the differentiator here is that as much as he does have that support system, which is a little bit closer, and they're more concerned with him than he is about himself. And Alfred's still around for a portion of the book at least, and the that introduction, I think the way he was careless about the city when we first saw it, because like the first issue opens, if I remember correctly, like on like riding on rooftops with the car. And I remember when you had tagged me for the Palace polls on this, I'm like, that was a cool introduction to the story and to the character in this iteration of it, because it sets the tone. Like he doesn't give a shit anymore. He's down to stop crime at any cause, with risk to anyone or anything, because he needs to stop crime, and he's gotten so central on his mission that he's lost, maybe not the humanity necessarily, because he still doesn't kill, but he's lost his awareness of other people.
I mean, Sean Murphy's focus on property damage in this book should have been a clear indication of his his career trajectory.
Yeah, I didn't feel like this was such an extreme shift for Batman.
Hmm.
Um, the style and the feel and even some of the continuity um seems to be pulled a lot from the animated series, which uh to me I can see how that would be a sort of an extreme shift, but I don't know, sort of modern Batman, it doesn't strike me that way. I think especially post geez post Dark Knight, maybe. I think that's just Batman. I think a lot of stories of like modern Batman are about him regaining that vision and that taking off the blinders toward other people.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I feel like as much as people say that Batman is this extreme dark character, I think a lot of the Batman runs over the last 15 years have actually been a rejection of that. Morrison's Batman is not the, gruesome, brutal Dark Knight that feels like it's within the spirit of Frank Miller's. And I mean, Tom King's is an absolute condemnation of that. And Scott's, it doesn't even really deal with that. So coming from that place, this being, of course, in 2018, 2017, which is just in the space of Tom King's run and, coming off the heels of Snyder, for me, this was pretty different. And I was surprised by how I felt about it. What carried the first issue for me was, I think, more so the way that the world felt already very lived in. I think Murphy does a good job of putting us into the space of the White Knight world really fast, and you understand really quickly what the relationships are between the characters, which I enjoy. What helped me find my way into the story more was when we learn that Alfred is sick and dying. Because then I was able to say, okay, similar to how in the Batman film, Batman freaks out when he thinks that Alfred died. This is that to me. He loses himself in Batman and in the dark side because Alfred is dying. He's at risk of losing, the person who was essentially his father figure for the last, 20 plus years. That struck a chord with me. And then I said, okay, now I can understand why this Batman is the way that he is right now. And that this is a turn even for the people that love him.
You said Batman, the Batman. I have to assume you mean Batman and Robin.
No, the Batman.
Batman and Robin. Where Alfred dies? The Batman and Robin.
I think he's talking about the most recent Batman.
Yeah, I know.
Oh okay.
Okay.
And he does it. Alfred dies in Batman and Robin too. Like,
I forgot.
Does he?
how? Does he? Doesn't he?
No.
I don't think he does.
I don't
He
recall.
get,
You're wrong,
he's real sick though. I remember that because that's the whole reason.
I don't know. The
Alicia
actor's dead, that's
Silverstone.
for sure.
No. That's the whole reason Alicia Silverstone shows up.
Right. That I recall.
Maybe he doesn't die. Oh, apologies.
He's just ancient in that movie. That's all. Might as well be.
Well, Alfred is in critical condition in White Knight over here, and again, that's a huge motivator for Bruce. The other thing that I was really intrigued by was the idea of there being two Harley Quinns.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That's
I
interesting.
really liked that, and that helped me find my way in. I am not a Harley Quinn fan. I don't dislike Harley Quinn, but I don't have an affection for her the way that I do for many, many other characters. And I can't tell you why, but she's just not one of my people.
Yeah.
But in this book, seeing that there were two versions of her, and it feels like it's almost an answer to the real life criticism of how much she had changed in the wake of the success of Suicide Squad and how she had become a different character. They split it. So the animated series, essentially, version of Harley Quinn is who Joker was originally with. And at some point, a different person assumes the moniker of Harley Quinn. And Joker's so loopy, he doesn't even realize that happened. Or at least it's never acknowledged by him to her. I thought that was really clever and interesting.
Honestly, for me, the Harley Quinn is, I think, my favorite character throughout all of these White
Yeah.
Knight stories.
Harleen specifically, right?
Yeah, the main one. Yeah. The one that matters. In fact, they actually even do a spin-off series, which I really recommend. I think that might be one of my favorite
Yes.
things in this universe. But it was really nice to see our main Harley kind of really come into her own in this. It's a little hard to talk about her without getting already to the end of the first volume. But she has growth in this, and that's her whole MO, is that there is growth for this character. There's growth ever since her inception. So much so that she left the Joker at one point. And she grows past the Joker, and then it's the Joker and her kind of like the skeletons in her closet kind of coming back to haunt her throughout the series. And how does she kind of get past that? Her relationship with Bruce throughout this is different, to put it lightly, but it somehow works.
Yeah.
Murphy does a pretty good job at like relating them, making them almost like two sides of the same coin, where the coin is the Joker. You know what I mean? And then because of that shared trauma that is the Joker, that kind of makes the relationship between Bruce and Harley super interesting, which I don't think I've ever seen. And honestly, I'm not sure I'd want to see in like a main continuity thing. So I think that's a good way of playing with the, alternate universe sandbox here that I really enjoyed. And also, the costumes he makes for Harley in this, fantastic.
Dude.
Even did she go by Riot? Is that what she went by? The other Harley, like once she gets that new costume, that
No,
purpley
she's
one?
Neo Joker.
Neo Joker. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
That relationship, that dynamic felt familiar. I couldn't place it, but for whatever reason, I felt like I've seen that before, and I don't know why. I liked it a lot. I think it worked really well, and I would enjoy seeing that dynamic between Bruce and Harley. I think it makes a lot of sense for Joker, because at the end of the day, she cares about him. Like, she genuinely loves the who he is. Joker aside, I guess.
Jack Napier.
Yeah. And Bruce has always had this just deep, maybe not hatred, but there's this mirror that gets placed in front of him with Joker sometimes, and I like the fact that she's able to kind of expose a different angle, and he finds his way into their dynamic through her. Similarly, I thought that was all well done. Really liked her as a character and how she was used. And the way that they make Joker even more just apathetic about shit, where, oh yeah, some new girl just walked into his life and he started abusing her. It's like, yep, that's it. He doesn't give a shit. I'm like, damn, actually, yeah, like that makes sense. Like, why would he care? If he's a sociopath, he wouldn't care who's by his side undying, as long as he's able to use them.
Right. They don't have a real. She's an NPC.
Yeah.
Everybody in Joker's world is an NPC. Similar, maybe you could argue, to the way that Batman is operating right now, in that he's so singularly focused that he doesn't really care at all who's in his way, who's standing beside him, who's not. And I think, you could even extrapolate that and make that argument about his Robins. And so the relationship between Batman and the Robins in this story is interesting, because you have Dick Grayson, you have Batgirl, who's not a Robin, but she is one of the young people who's followed Batman, and then Duke is in the book, but he's totally dissociated from that origin that we know, the main origin. But the other Robin, who's not quite in the story but is referenced heavily and who hangs over the book like a specter, is Jason Todd. And the relationship there is different, because in this world, Jason's the first and Dick came second. So that's obviously a completely different situation. And it's interesting because in this world, the first Robin is a representation of Batman's biggest failure. Whereas in mainline continuity, one could argue that Dick Grayson's success and transition into Nightwing is a representation of Batman's greatest success. So I thought that was an interesting inversion.
I agree, but at least what we read, White Knight and Curse, don't seem to do much with it. I think it seems like the volume after this will or has.
There's even like a side thing going on right now for Jason Todd specifically.
Yeah. The Dick Grayson Bruce Wayne relationship just kind of felt stuck in that time in the animated series where Dick leaves the group and becomes Nightwing himself, and he's very bitter and very angry, but hangs around anyway.
He didn't seem too angry to me. He seemed like he's kind of just accepted who he is and will be agreeable or disagreeable depending on the situation. Like he seemed like he's like, I get who Bruce is at this point. I'm not mad about it because that's who he is, and I'm gonna push back where my own opinions, differ. And that's like it felt very it felt a little emptier in comparison to some of the other stuff that comes out between Dick and Bruce, where they have this really closer, tight-knit relationship. It doesn't even look like that affection was necessarily even damaged, seemingly. It just looks like he's just like, I get it. Like, I appreciate you. You're a father figure to me, and I recognize that and that the importance of that. But that's kind of there's a bit of distance there, but it doesn't feel angry.
I want to agree with that, but then I thought about the conversation that Dick has with Barbara, where she tells him, he's done everything for you. How could you speak to him this way? And all that stuff, where it feels like Barbara's the one who doesn't have deep-seated negativity towards Batman. She just needs him to chill the hell out.
Sure.
Whereas Dick seems to have something underneath the surface. He wasn't there for me. Thank goodness it was Alfred who came and ran after me when I tried to run away. There's a lot of undercurrents of trauma on his part that are playing out in his interactions with Bruce, and in his conversations about Bruce, which, I think Bruce feels guilty for the death of Jason, which hangs over him. He's not a player in the book, but it comes up several times. Batman hates Joker because he thinks, well, for, being a menace, but the emotional reason is for the fact that he believes Joker killed Jason Todd. And that failure, again, his greatest failure, cascades down to Dick in the sense that he's not there for him either. He's unavailable. And he's not able to right his wrongs in that regard until Alfred's letter down the road. That's how I read it.
I never cared for Nightwing's characterization in this.
Yeah.
Because, like, what you describe is right. That is how I read it, too. Like, that's the text of the book. But for me, that's just antithetical to what Nightwing should be. And also, him becoming, like, a cop doesn't feel right to me for Dick either. Like, trajectory-wise, it makes sense for Barbara. 100%. But it doesn't feel like something Dick should be doing. But I guess in this world, this Dick would. But I'm taking that.
In main continuity, he was a cop in Bloodhaven for
Right.
years.
Yeah.
I feel like it jives with this character. I feel like it does.
I guess so. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that's true.
I think the thing is, it feels weird that Nightwing becomes.
That's
a cop.
what I'm getting at. Yeah, there's
Sure.
no
Not
distinction
Dick Grayson.
between the two. It's
Yeah.
turning vigilantism into, like, it's blurring the lines, which I don't think he would do really.
I kind of get that vibe from him of being somebody who colors more in the lines on that kind of situation where he's willing to give a bit more, if he's allowed a bit more to be able to do good, to be able to save people, even if he has to sacrifice some of his own, I guess, I don't know, free agency to do what he will with crime, but he's able to address more of it, I think he'd take that opportunity because that's the kind of person that Dick is at the end of the day and can shine through in Nightwing. I particularly enjoyed that characterization.
I never questioned it.
Again, I'm just taking in my baggage from outside of this into this book, so that's
Yeah.
totally me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So the Joker in this story, obviously, this is like, I would say 2018 is peak Joker fatigue, right? This is after Suicide Squad. This is it's after or just before, I can't remember, the
Right
Joker
before,
film.
I believe it's
Right before?
Yeah, 2019 is Joker.
Yeah.
19,
yeah.
yeah.
But we had already probably seen the trailers, and the conversation around should this movie exist was definitely a factor. I think people were wanting to cool off on the Joker. And so here's a story that says, okay, well, let's turn the Joker good. But what I like about it, because the premise is not appealing to me, but what I like about it is really the execution. It's that, yeah, these pills have made him, sane. But really what they've done is eliminate the Joker personality. And what's remaining is a person who's still as obsessed with Batman and who, similar to Batman, is willing to break the rules. So, in a sense, he's the same. He just lost the Joker quality, the insane quality, which I that's even kind of murky and weird, but we'll go with it. That's what the story's presenting. I like that he's still an extremist. He's still willing to do what he has to do to get what he wants, controlling all the villains, the assault on the library. Like, all those are things the Joker would do with less flair and style, but still that criminal mind, that genius element that is in there.
But it was only those two examples, and then he went like more or less straight with talking to Duke and trying to put forward the commission plan with respect to with what's his name, with Gordon. Like, once the initial stuff started, then he pivoted away from needing to go like the illegal crime route and tried to actually go, I don't know, as straight and narrow as he possibly could at that point. I think the fact that he's willing to dabble in it equates him to a Batman who, like, vigilanteism technically isn't legal, but it has a benefit. And while this initially was done illegally and the steps moving forward weren't, not to say that it's excusable, but there's more of a gray area there than I'll give the Joker directly.
Oh, I mean, obviously, the Joker is a mass murderer. I'm talking about the quality within him to have that mind of saying, this is the plan, this is the scheme. The Joker is known for his schemes and the kinds of things he puts together. I'm saying that those qualities translated over into the Jack Napier personality, and that when you look at it from that lens, now he's not different than Batman. Their mission statements are the same, and they're willing to break the rules in similar ways to get what they want.
I just think the whole sanity versus insanity, there being like a Joker and a Jack Napier, I liked it, but at the same time, I was like, isn't this Two-Face?
Especially in the second volume.
Isn't this Harvey Dent and Two-Face, really? The guy using the law to try to take down Batman. Meanwhile, the crazy side of him's using the underground for it. I don't know. Like, it... Again, I really liked this, especially when it was coming out. I'm a little cooler on it now, but especially when it was coming out, month to month, I really enjoyed it. But it did feel a little Two-Facey for me. Even he shows up in this book too. He doesn't really do anything, but
That's
sort of
actually
a cameo appearance.
it's funny that you say that now. I didn't have that thought until you just said that, and I even remember him being Two-Face being in the book and me not even blinking an eye at it. And now that you're saying it, it does very much so feel like that. Like it is a story of just two people inside the same body.
Well, I mean, you could argue that's Batman too. I mean, maybe that's the theme of Batman. It's fight it. It's internal strife, and then you see that with his villains too. And maybe that's just shedding to light, exactly what the common theme is. But rereading it again, I'm like, this. Like I know Long Halloween's the best Batman story of all time, but this is a little Two-Facey. And you're a big Two-Face guy too, Sean.
Two-Face is my favorite. I don't agree with that because Harvey Dent and Batman are friends. Joker and Batman are not friends, and there is no Harvey can't choose to be Two-Face or not be Two-Face because the disfigurement that he has prevents him from being able to live a normal life. He's exiled from that. And I think that's part of the tragedy of him. And we know why he is what he is. Whereas with Joker, there's a lot of ambiguity there. We didn't know that there was this other side to the man, and that's what we're seeing now. So I feel like there are enough differences between the two that for me it passes the smell test.
Would you say that Jack and Bruce would be friends?
No.
You don't think Jack Napier and Bruce would be friends?
No, I don't. Because Bruce Wayne is a fake person, number one. And number two, I think that they're ideologically opposed in the sense that without Batman, the Jack Napier individual, probably he doesn't have the same he's more similar to Batman than Bruce Wayne, if that makes sense. And if there is no Batman, Jack Napier does things a different way. He probably just does them by the book. He's probably a regular run-of-the-mill politician, probably a good guy. I think the Batman factor is what creates the schism between them that makes it so that Jack Napier can't be Bruce's friend, because Jack Napier is willing to do things that Bruce Wayne isn't okay with. Batman can do the things that Batman can do because he has to stop supervillains. Jack Napier is doing them to stop Batman.
See, as you list that out, that sounds like the distinction between Two-Face and because then why is Harvey Dent and Bruce? Why are Harvey Dent and Bruce friends? If in that case, if similarly Bruce is the fake person, if Bruce, if ideologically, let's say Harvey's trying to stop Batman through the same means, that to me sounds like they. Similar characterizations in that sense.
But Harvey Dent doesn't try to stop Batman. Harvey Dent and Batman are on the same team. There's no story where prior to Two-Face, Harvey and Batman have any opposition at all.
Yeah, in the Long Halloween there's friction but respect.
Yeah.
They're aligned. They have the same mission.
Yeah. It's similar to, early Commissioner Gordon.
Okay.
And even still, if you go by animated series continuity, if I'm not mistaken, it was Bruce and Harvey that were friends. They were like old college buddies or something.
In that show, the real relationship is between Bruce and Harvey, but in the comics, it's between Batman and Harvey. And the relationship is more about stopping crime. It's very similar to what is in The Dark Knight. But that's just where I draw the line between those two characters, and I feel like there is that distinction. But I don't think the comparison is out of this world by any means. I think it's, a reasonable comparison. Um, let's talk about the Neo Joker, because I think that was probably the one thing in the first volume that I was like,
Yeah.
don't, I'm not into this.
Same.
Like, the idea of her was cool in the sense that she is this rejected version of Harley who now wants to, kind of get the Joker's attention in the same way that the Joker's always trying to get Batman's attention. I appreciated that, but her makeup was very like crowy, like emo-y, and the freeze gun was a little bit too Batman and Robin for me. How are these people alive anymore? They're frozen. That's kind of what happens if you just get frozen. There's a difference between cryogenically freezing someone and fucking blasting their body with a ray gun.
Just thinking of that guy Sub-Zero freezes in the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
I definitely did not like the name addition, Neo Joker. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
That off
like
the bat was
Neopets.
just like a little cheesy.
Wow.
And I think her premise, like the initial idea of her now no longer having Joker, no longer literally having the Joker because he's gone insane, is very interesting. I was like all about that. I'm like, oh cool, like this makes a lot of sense. But then her as being this unsure leader, which makes sense for her character in this story. I didn't think it was actually executed all that well after that. Like whenever she come on page, I'm just like, all right, I'm a little bored by this character. Let's see what she has to say. All right, whatever. Let's keep going. Like she was definitely a slow point for me in the book, when initially I thought this would be really, really cool and exciting to have these two Harleys kind of fight against each other for different reasons for the same person. That on a premise alone, real cool, but definitely came out a lot different.
I think she served her job. She's there to be the driving antagonist to kind of get the big set pieces forward, giant freeze ray.
Sure.
All the rogues gallery being mind controlled by the Mad Hatter,
That was awesome.
And it was awesome seeing some of the animated series characters that you never see, like Baby Doll is one of them.
Yeah, dude.
The Rocket Rider woman, I forget her name.
Surely it's not Red Rocket.
I thought I was gonna say Red Rocket, but I didn't want to say Red Rocket on here.
Yeah, right.
I don't think they named her after a
Yeah,
dog
yeah,
dick.
we know.
Roxy
Yeah.
Rocket.
Roxy Rocket, yeah.
That's not that much better.
I get so excited anytime I see Scarface. Scarface and the ventriloquist,
ventriloquist, yeah.
that's top tier Batman villain on my tier list.
Yep.
Also, this ventriloquist looked like the ventriloquist from Tim and Eric Awesome Show. Great job, too.
I never saw that.
Oh, boy. It's a thing. It's a thing.
But yeah, so I agree with you, Tyler. She gave us, an excuse or a way for the story to kind of move forward, and it needed that. I feel like there was something lacking in her character, though. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint, but she did allow for some cool moments, which I appreciated. Also, at first, like on my reread, right, I was like, what the hell is happening? How are they controlling the villains? Like, I got the Mad Hatter tech thing, but what's going on? I didn't realize that Clayface was actually the way they were doing it all, and that I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part.
I like that. That was an inventive way to and it also addresses something that I hadn't thought about until this book, where, oh yeah, like he has a tongue. Is that sand? Yeah, he has eyes. Are those sand? And it answered my question about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It was a clever way. And then the card being stuck literally in like the frontal lobe of the brain and shit. I'm like, that was a good idea. Real cool way.
Speaking of art, I mean, if you pick up a book by one of the writer, artist, creators, I think it's always a treat when they're doing the art. Sometimes it's like, oh man, you're doing the writing, which is cool, but I really want to see you get let loose in the art front, like Daniel Warren Johnson on Jurassic League. I think this is a phenomenal looking comic. We talked about the clothing for Harley Quinn, which is all fantastic, Harleen. But I think a lot of the designs and the look and feel of this book I love it. I think it's awesome.
I really like the updated Batman suit in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I love those slutty thigh highs.
Yeah, what is that about?
Like, I don't know.
I got it
but
right here at my desk, just staring at me daily. It seems functional. I think that's why I like it. It's functional yet fashion. No, I mean, like it's tactical, and it doesn't feel like the animated series where it just has this utility belt where like an unnamed amount of things can be in there. Like it seems all purposeful. The suit is what I like about it.
Hmm.
The overall the character designs, even when like they joined the GTO and they became part of police and they got like I don't know, additional hats and badges, everything there just was a cool addition and a cool rendition of something that's familiar. Even some of the villains too, like the way they looked, they changed ever so slightly, but it helped to accentuate and make it feel like it was part of this world. Like Poison Ivy's one in particular that I remember, just like, oh, she like is wearing this like whole jacket situation, and it was all done very well.
It's a good croc. I like a good croc, and a lot of emphasis on Clayface's nipples in this, I will say.
Did he have nipples?
He did. He had very evident nipples. I can see if I can bring up the page here. Just it was. I'm gonna show that to the viewers, and I'll show you guys. Like those are just like literally.
Oh,
those are-
wow.
Yeah, those
Just
are
shaped
very
up.
prominent.
Yeah.
While we're showing panels and pages, can anyone tell me who this guy is? In the middle of the page, the 2-page spread where we're seeing all the villains, the guy sitting immediately next to Two-Face. Who is that?
Scarecrow.
With the mask. Oh, yes, of course. Just didn't, I don't know, look different.
Got
to
it.
me,
Got to
but-
have. I mean, it's a weird Scarecrow thing. He's got like a little bowler, right?
A what?
He's got like a bowler hat or something like that, from what I remember.
Yeah, some kind of weird hat and the mask.
Show
I
it
guess
again?
it threw me off.
What issue
Yeah.
is that?
Not sure which issue it is, but I got it up there.
It's early on. It's like 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he shows up later on.
Oh yeah.
I just figured it was like a Sandman looking mask.
Mhm.
And I did never notice this until right now, but look at Penguin flying in the corner of this panel.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, with the
Yeah, I
umbrella.
saw
Yeah.
that.
You talk about Batman animated series, that Penguin looks ripped right out of there. Didn't change anything about him.
It's funny that we're praising all the villains now because once we get to volume 2.
We'll see about that. Yeah, so things kind of resolve, and Batman and Joker have to team up in order to defeat this Neo Joker. It's good stuff. I really like the way this whole thing resolves. Again, I wasn't thrilled by the Neo Joker's Ice Ray, and I do have to criticize the flip-flop of Jack Napier to Joker from a visual standpoint. Like, it doesn't make any sense how he could go from looking completely normal to pasty white with the green hair. That was unbelievable.
It's a cool visual effect,
Yeah.
but if you're trying to immerse yourself in the book, like, it's not conducive.
Yeah. I almost wish that it was implied that wasn't really happening and that was just a visual representation.
Yeah.
I guess you could read it that way, but I wish that that's what was stated.
Huh. I liked it. I
Yeah, I
enjoyed
did too.
seeing him like transition between. You could see him go from these like stable to manic states, and I think he does both very well. Like clear, composed, and then it's so different when he draws Joker being just like bananas.
Well, so speaking of, Are you guys fine with this being Jack Napier? Like Joker has a name. He has an identity. I know that's like typically something people don't want, and I know Murphy's using the name from the I almost said the Prince Batman, the original Tim Burton
89.
Batman. Yeah, 89. Using that
No, the
character's
Prince
name for
one.
that. I thought that was a pretty bold choice to just do that right away. Like, just get it out of the way. This is a Joker that there's really not much mystery in that regard to. Because honestly, I'm tired of that fucking Joker mystery.
I
With
think
like
I think
three
it-
Jokers and everything recently, I was like, you know what, I'm done with that. This is fine.
Yep.
Getting it out of the way was a good idea because then you build up, like let's say he was going to build up the whole reveal about it. I think that would have fallen much flatter if you're just like, this
Yeah.
is what it is, we're done, let's keep the story going. It's not about this. Like by not making it a priority or by not making it as important a thing, I think it helps to, for me, that helped me not really care. At some point, I'm just like, oh, okay, sure, Jack Napier, that's it. We're accepting it, and this is where we're rolling with, and I'm cool with that. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, for me, it's another carryover from the animated series continuity. I think it's simple and it makes sense and it works.
It's Black Label. I don't care. You know, like
It's true.
It's not continuity. Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
Talk
they-
to me when Rom B fucks some shit up.
whoa. They can do whatever they want in Black Label, and you know it's fine. Like, if this were a mainline story, then I would think differently about it. Sure. Yeah. Overall thoughts before we talk about Curse of the White Knight. On White Knight, and we didn't talk about the end reveal, which is important. It turns out Harleen orchestrated all of this.
Yeah, it was cool.
She set this all up. She pit Joker and Batman with each other. She created the pills, which was absurd to me. You know, she's
From a psychiatrist to biochemist.
yeah. She's quite the genius. She did all this because she wanted Jack back, and she did feel that Batman was not good for Gotham. And then Jack could give something better to Gotham than what Batman is. Thought that was interesting.
I thought her being the one to make Joker better made sense, but when she orchestrated it about it being a difference between the direction that Batman was going and how she thought, I guess, crime or how this vigilante should be operating, that felt like a bit of much of a stretch. Like that maybe gave her, it elevated her in terms of like genius status, I guess, because then Bruce had something to figure out. Like it was another mystery to him, and that felt like, I don't know that she's at that kind of a level. That feels like it's reserved for, I don't know, Ra's al Ghul or something.
I can see that. I think whenever it comes to Black Label stories, I always expect that characters will feel different. And I think here, whenever it's an out of continuity story, it's more about the emotion of it than how it relates to everyone else we can think of who's canon and relevant. Like you would think that this would be, like you said, like a Ra's al Ghul level strategy, but because Harley Quinn emotionally is connected to the story, she's the one that does it.
Sure.
And she's the one that has the capacity to do it.
I buy that. She's fine. You can mix some sort of chemical or whatever, but beyond that, easy.
That's
Kill.
the part you believe?
I believe the chemicals. Why not? Yeah.
Well, listen, I believe in chemicals too, but
I don't
yeah, I
believe in
don't know. It didn't
chemicals.
do that much for me. It was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
It makes story sense. Like it doesn't make sense, but I
Right.
reading it, I went, yeah, okay.
You're talking about the reveal is fine, not like your thoughts on the first volume, right?
The reveal.
The reveal specifically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the first volume of White Knight is a great proof of concept. I think it establishes that, Murphy does have something to say with these characters, even if it's not directly related to main continuity. I think just as characters, he is adding something interesting to the wrinkles, and he doesn't, he plays it pretty safe, focusing on the main, Batman supporting cast, even right down to making the focus the Joker and Harley Quinn as far as the villains are concerned. Um, he didn't take too many risks as far as that goes, I don't think. And I thought that was smart because, he only had but so many issues. And I thought he made the most of it. I really enjoyed it. The first time, I think I'm with Tyler in that I probably enjoyed it a little bit less this time around. But even just throughout this conversation, I've been like, oh shoot, I didn't think about that before I said it right there, or someone else said something that was really interesting. So I think this was a home run.
I bet month to month this was fun too. Like, this is a
Mm.
good
It
book
was.
to wait for.
It was, yeah,
It was, yeah. It still
It
is. I will say, it still is.
yeah. The Beyond the White Knight I thought was awesome.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Did that
Yep.
wrap up recently?
Not done yet.
No, okay.
It's close to being done, but
Yeah,
not yet. There's been little like 1 or 2 shots in between too that have been pretty enjoyable.
the Red Hood stuff.
The Harley book, honestly, was my favorite of all of these, but
Yeah, I didn't want to include too much.
yeah, the Harley book's dense too. So
So let's talk about Curse of the White Knight. So this is, of course, the sequel. Joker is fully jokered up, and he's in prison. He at the end of the last book, he revealed, the truth of what he had done. That he was the one who, destroyed the library. He was the one who attacked Backport. Which, by the way, when I first read this, when I read it this time, I saw Blackport.
Oh my god! Every time after I forgot who somebody, I think one of the TV
Yeah.
announcers said it, I would see that first. I'm like, no, that's not what he's saying.
the place where Duke is from.
This book puts the focus more on the legacy of Bruce Wayne, the legacy of Gotham, and it squares him off with a villain who, the book at least, provides a connection and makes it a very personal battle for Batman. We're talking about John Paul Valley, aka Azrael. Probably like the most controversial Batman villain of the 90s. In that some
Villain?
people think, yeah,
He was a hero.
I agree.
what's the face, Tyler?
No, I use a hero in my book.
Oh yeah. He gets Murphyized here.
Murphed. I think it's
He
Murphed.
gets murphed.
Yeah.
I like that. He gets murphed, and he is turned into an ex-military, religious extremist, just like in mainline continuity, at least that part, with cancer, who has been contracted to kill Batman because of history. And it takes familiar concepts about, the deep-rooted potential evil that's lurking within Gotham and the religious aspects of it, and, which families have controlled Gotham since way back when. It takes all that stuff, like even the Gates of Gotham that Snyder was doing, which, became popular around that time, and then it bakes it into this. I thought that stuff was the weakest part of the whole White Knight. Yeah, it's drivel, like it's absolute nonsense. I don't think that Murphy handles it with the care and craft that Scott Snyder did, and even James Tynion, who was involved in some of that stuff. I think they did a much better job including it. It just felt, it took up so much space, but it never felt like it mattered. I don't care.
And the reveal takes
it-
way too long.
Yeah.
It felt like his goal was to undermine the Waynes.
Right.
And like it didn't feel like he had enough weight behind what he was trying to do.
It didn't bear importance at the end of the day. I felt like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, okay, who cares? Like whatever.
Yeah. That's what I kept saying the whole time. I was just like, do I care about this? Like,
So
Sean,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just saying I was really scared as you were building that up because I thought you would be like, "Wow, this is like."
yeah.
Me and Kel had the same sigh of relief.
No,
at
me
that.
too. Me too. In my head, I'm like, this is traditionally the worst part of any Batman story.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And yeah, it didn't work for me. I and then there were like pirate ships involved. You guys know how I feel about that. That's
True.
just
It's true.
what I will say. The only credit I'll give that part of the story is that even though I think it was really poorly executed, I what I got out of it was that it doesn't actually matter what the history is. What matters is what you do now. And that Bruce is a good person. And because he's doing the right things and he's following, his heart or his morals, that he's honoring the legacy of the Waynes before him, i.e., his parents, and that they were not the bad people that they were being made out to be. And that, history sometimes gets it wrong. That's what I got out of it. But again, I don't think it was necessarily well executed or anything like that.
You got a lot out of it, Sean. I'll tell you that right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think too, just especially with the way it ends, to me, he still kind of gives in to his rage.
Sure.
And he still has to take that second step of, oh shit, actually, that's not who I am. So it didn't, I don't know, it didn't feel like he was totally being the bigger person.
Oh, when he
There.
slices Azrael's
Yeah.
throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's just like, I need to make sure you don't die.
Yeah.
It's like, hold on, homie.
Well, you couldn't have had that thought before you sliced his neck.
Right.
I had to chop off an arm. Like,
Yeah. That was just not a good moment in the story, point blank. But I will say, other than that stuff, Azrael did it for me. I really, really, really liked this version of the character.
I've only so years ago my aunt got these like collection of TJ Maxx comics. Like they're just like in a baggie, like random
Yep.
ass issues of stuff. And one of them was I think Legends of Nightfall or something. There was like running
yeah.
alongside and it was all of the Batman Nightfall stuff.
Yeah.
But specifically Azrael. So when I first read that, I'm like, this dude's using guns and he's Batman? I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy's cool as shit. So I was excited. The moment that I saw that this was John Paul Valley, I was like, what? Hold on a second. Are we going to get the suit? And when we got the suit, I popped off so hard. I turned that page around, I went, yes, let's go. Let's get it.
Yep.
Young Marco just reading Azrael books and Nom.
Yeah, dude, exactly. That's what I was reading.
I'm a 90s Azrael apologist. I didn't care for this version of him as much.
Mm-hmm.
I have an overall take on this that I think helps me sort of make sense of it. But I think I like the old one better. And I like the way that story is sort of executed better.
I like the idea of that one better, but I have not read it, so I cannot comment on the quality of the story. I just have always heard that, oh, this sucked. But
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's it's a foundational comic for me. I love it.
awesome. I want to read
Club
it.
option. Yeah.
I think the suit's cool. I love the Azrael that they brought back, the religious extremist that they had used post Morrison, the third man who becomes, or is it the first man? Whichever one it is. I think it's the first from the Ghosts of Batman. I loved all that, And so that's my familiarity with Azrael. But coming into this, I was like, okay, cool. He doesn't give a shit. Like they're killing whoever. This is hyper violent. Um, it feels like borderline a commentary on the comics time that Azrael came from. And I like how, you know, Bruce just said at the end of White Knight that, you know, he was redeemed. Like Alfred's letter changed him, and he was no longer going to be that, you know, aggressive, hyper violent Batman. He was going to be better. And here comes this villain who, you know, is a Batman analog to some degree in the main books. He becomes Batman, and he is an absolute nightmare. I really like that. I like the contrast. I just thought it was all really cool. Look at this page. Let me show this page off. This is Azrael in
Yes.
the mechanized bat suit.
I gotta
That's
say,
the page.
maybe hot take. I prefer Azrael's red and gold suit. To
I think the
mech
red and
suit.
gold suit is sick.
I
for
love the
sure.
red and gold suit,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
or when
I
it's
don't know
like
if
red
it's
and
hot
white
take.
sometimes.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I like that Murphy got both of them in.
Yeah.
Sure,
That
yeah.
I appreciated. I appreciate that.
Azrael
would-
and it's Batman. Yeah.
I wouldn't have been happy if either were missing. But you know, character design aside, you know, fight scenes aside, not a lot there. Not a
No.
not a ton, not a ton
Nope.
there.
This was
I was just gonna
much
say-
weaker.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if they just cut out those historical flashback parts, I'd enjoy this a lot. And then I'm like, wait, what would there be then? Just Azrael
Yeah.
going around killing people, and Batman reacting.
Yeah, Barbara
Which-
yelling at everyone.
Which I say that, and I don't hate it still. Like, it still looks really
Right.
good. It's just super simple. You know what I mean?
The like Ruth stuff, the Elite, like every time that someone said just the name Ruth, I was annoyed because it's like, who is that? Like that's not, no one cares about that.
And
character.
she like dies. Like they kill her off not even halfway through.
Yeah, because she was inconsequential. She was literally just a way to get Azrael into the story and to get Jim dead. Which I feel like there could have been a lot, like you could have cut that whole thing out. I think part of that too was like a reaction to politics in the US, like people being like, there's even the reference to the 99%, the 1%, the elite.
SJWs in the first
Yeah,
volume. That was
yeah.
all over it.
I think that premise I feel like could have had legs, but you needed to name names, like name family members of Gotham, right? Like that would have been cool. If you told me like the Maronis, I'm like, oh, okay, we're trying to go after these people, right? You're trying to go after whoever else the fuck. Oh, those the Falcones,
Canes.
oh Canes, like
Yeah.
whoever, Thomas, like
The
those-
Cobblepots.
right? Like that would have been cool because then I'm like, oh, I can attach people to these. I can attach some sort of foundational spirit to your mission. But you're just telling me the elites, and that's generic as fuck. And I don't. Why do I care?
And even still, all that threads back to Bruce.
Right.
So it's like they say at one point toward the end of the book that it's like hundreds of billions of dollars. And I was like, come on.
All because of Batman.
Yeah, I think there's two very distinct stories being told here. One of them is the John Paul Valley, you know, family history, religious stuff, and then there's the, you know, elite 1%, you know, story. Both of them could theoretically deal with the history of Gotham, both of them in very different ways. I think I'm far more compelled by, you know, like what Marco just brought up, like these different families that maybe have held Gotham down, that have profited off of, you know, some of the bad stuff that's gone on. You can tie that into the, I thought the concept of the Batman destruction fund or whatever they called it, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And again, someone's stealing from that. Who's profiting from that? The Batman movie has not that concept, but a similar sort of thing in it with the fund for orphans and all that stuff that they had, and
That's
people were
right.
siphoning. That was how criminals were getting out of prison. They were using that fund, and I think there's a really interesting way that concept, as it's represented here, could have been explored. But there's so much weird stuff going on the side of that all that gets cut out, and all we get is Ruth and the Elite, which was irrelevant.
And the way that Azrael gets brought in on behalf of the elites via Ruth, I didn't like that, because at that point you could have made it about maintaining the history aspect and maintaining the power struggle that Murphy was trying to address. You could even introduce the church there and be like, okay, the church has like a stranglehold on people, and alongside these other rich people, like that feels much more connective. You get rid of Ruth. There's just this one felt a lot messier in terms of execution and like making me care and focus. I didn't feel like this was as clean.
Yeah. I mean, I thought of The Dark Knight Rises, and how, in that movie, Bane is a mercenary who's brought in by an outside party to do a very, very similar thing to what Azrael is brought into Gotham to do in this book. But he has his own agenda, which is driven by the League of Shadows, which is borderline religious, and it goes from there. And I maintain that's an extremely deep movie with a lot going on. I think this book has a incredibly similar premise, but I think it executes it worse on every level, and that's unfortunate because I don't think it had to be that way.
I mean, I think you could say about both volumes that, for better or for worse, they are derivative.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's much more for worse in Curse of the White Knight. But is there a truly original take in this? I don't know.
Maybe the Harley
The
stuff.
Harleys, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, that's my favorite part of the whole universe so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's sort of what I was able to put together reading Curse of the White Knight. Is this feels more more akin to like an ultimate DC, an ultimate Batman universe.
Yeah.
That really helps me sort of compartmentalize a little bit more. It just made it feel better.
Interesting thought. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because sort of in the way of like the way like Bendis did, he had like Mary Jane thrown off the bridge or whatever, and Peter had to save her, and Gwen Stacy was killed by Carnage, in Ultimate Spider-Man. Spoilers, I guess.
Damn.
I've never
it's
read
just
it. So.
stuff like that. It's there to sort of introduce you to characters and concepts, but it twists them for the sake of the story and to add just a little bit of a different flavor. And I think that's sort of how this works as well.
The other major beat here and story moment is Harley Quinn, or Harleen rather, I guess, having children. She has twins, Joker's children, presumably.
Jax.
I'm sorry.
Well, one's Joker's.
Sure.
God, I hope they don't go down that road, huh?
Imagine.
Um,
Oh no!
I was fine with that. I was kind of, when I first read this, I was like, oh no, like I don't want them to take Harley off the board as a player in the story. Of having kids prevents her from being able to be a more active member of things, but that didn't happen. She still gets to kick ass. She still has moments and stuff like that. What's weird to me, and I don't know if anybody else thought of this or whatever, but like, why is it that when she's pregnant, her shirts are always like
Showing.
well over her belly.
Yeah, yeah.
Who walks
thought that
around
too.
like that?
It's called maternity wear.
Right? I had the
No
same
woman,
thought.
no woman in their right mind.
I feel like the only people that dress like that are like fat men.
No, he had no reference point, right? Like, what is he gonna do?
Like fat dudes who like wear only shorts. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
winter hits. You know, nothing against it. It's just a personal observation.
That's so funny, Sean. I had the same thought of just like, I always see her belly button. What's up with that?
Yeah, like
I mean-
I just it just struck me as a weird decision
Yeah.
on
It
Murphy's
Could be
part.
maybe it's a purposeful, like a Tarantino-esque decision. You know?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I was gonna say that's how you can tell there was not a woman anywhere near this book.
Yeah. It's borderline hard to talk about this one because I really think that it stripped the White Knight verse of a lot of the interest and nuance that it had. Like I'm not gonna sit here and talk about the history of these various or these two different warring families and their swashbuckling adventures in the distant past. It's hard to overstate how irrelevant that stuff is to me.
Sean, what reaction does the word swashbuckling get from you?
Goose chills.
Interesting. It's similar, I guess, to quarterback.
You don't like that word?
I'm just trying to get in your head.
Oh man. What I will say in defense of this book though is that it looks so good. I think a lot of the action's awesome, especially the Azrael Batman fights. I thought they were done really well. And Azrael's design, like you can see why, I'm sure a lot of toys were sold based. I had toys based on Azrael, and I had never seen the character anywhere
Really?
other than toys. I didn't even know anything about it. And it's just sick. It's so cool.
And particular shout out to Matt Hollingsworth. I love his coloring and those pages. That page that you pulled up, the splash of Azrael,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I think he does excellent work throughout the entirety of both of these books. Real good stuff. If it wasn't for him, there would be a different flavor to this book.
Totally. Yeah. I think Sean Murphy chose his collaborators very well.
Yeah. The thing I was gonna ask you guys is like, how did you guys feel about Joker dying?
To be honest with you, I really wish he wasn't a part of this at all.
Me too.
I don't.
It
I
felt
don't-
weird that this was his big play.
This is
Yeah.
his moment, right?
Yeah.
Why does this again? Why does it matter? Who cares?
That-
So, for anyone who is listening to us talk about this and hasn't read this, we're not addressing the core idea of this book, I guess. And so I'll just very quickly go over it. Joker is fully Joker after the events of the main original White Knight book that we just talked about. And his big play is that he learned in his in prison where he discovered the Joker, quote unquote. He learns about these ancient Gotham families and that the Joker was inspired by a person who lived before. And he learned about this person and built his persona off of this individual. And that Bruce and the Waynes are not actually the Waynes. They are imposter Waynes. They stole the lineage
They're way
of the Waynes.
Ha, ha, ha. Well
they're,
done.
they're never mind.
That's
Oh
pretty good.
man. So that's the big idea. And if you're sitting there and wondering, well, how does that pay off? We already discussed it. The payoff is that Bruce doesn't care and no one cares. And we certainly don't. And not to harp on that, but it's just the way it is.
The only thing that happens of consequences in this book is like mad villains die and Gordon dies.
The death of Gordon, yeah. I thought that, you know, if you're gonna get Azrael over, he's got to do something of consequence, and at the very least, that does take place. He does kill Jim Gordon. He does almost break Barbara's back. He does cut the head off of Bane, which I thought was wild and also funny because I think that Azrael and Bane have a lot in common if you go by the Dark Knight Rises and this particular comic. But yeah, those are his big shots. And Jim being a casualty of that in a story that is not continuity, sure. I don't want to see Jim Gordon die, so you got me.
It felt, it didn't even feel like a good payoff. Like the build up to it wasn't even necessarily there. It was the end of the previous issue where he's talking to a shadowy figure he just assumes is Batman, and then the next issue picks up with him getting stabbed, and I didn't feel a lot of that emotional resonance. Like even when Babs ran out of the hospital, and then Bruce is like crying with his body wrapped in his hands. I didn't feel a lot, and I think if you're gonna get rid of such an important character, and I don't have a good reaction to it, I think something was done wrong.
I definitely don't have any argument against that. I think the book, in general, things didn't feel the way they were supposed to feel. And I think that just has to do with the fact that so much of it is wasted. So much of the page space is wasted. You could build on those emotions better. You could build those relationships better, make things matter more, but there was too much time spent on the history. And I just think that really held the book back. And it could have been great. I genuinely think that there is enough there that's good that if you just took off the stuff that didn't work and built on what did, you could have another offering that's just as good as the initial. But that's not the route that Murphy chose to go. Happens. Final thoughts? Oh, go
Before we
ahead,
do final thoughts, do you guys, I guess, Cal Marco, do you guys have any interest in reading the current one? What's the current one? Beyond the White Knight? Is that what we're going on? Yeah. Terry McGinnis is in it.
Ooh, oh man, all right, you kind of got me on that one. I was just about to be like, after this one, I don't know. If you had if we hadn't read this sequel, I'd have been like, sure. But Terry McGinnis,
Marco, I do recommend the Harley one. Who drew that one, Sean? Was it Scalera?
I don't remember. Oh, I think it was.
I have it here. I have it here. I haven't read them yet. I have it ready to be read, but I just haven't.
I think it was.
Katana Collins.
Yeah, and it was written by a woman.
Yeah,
from what I
Matteo
remember, yeah.
Scalera.
Oh yeah, dude, Matteo Scalera
Yeah.
is very similar vein as Sean Gordon Murphy, except I'm even a bigger Matteo Scalera fan. You know, Black Science is my jam.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
I've been dying to pick that for the book club. Yeah, that's a good question. Are you guys interested in continuing to follow this universe?
Not really.
That's fair.
Had it not been for the curse of the White Knight, I would have been more interested. But Terry McGinnis, easy to get me.
You know, it's funny. I think Curse had more stuff that I would like. I do think the Gotham family stuff is interesting. I like Azrael, you know. It just overall that this stuff just didn't work for me.
I think that's pretty funny. The second volume is more appealing to you, and probably to me too, actually, now that I think about it, from a premise standpoint. But execution wise, the first one knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Relative to Curse. All right, fair enough. Yeah, final thoughts.
It's a good, like I said, a good ultimate sort of style, alternate universe take. It's an interesting lens into, what Sean Gordon Murphy has to say. If nothing else, the art is what you could show up for. Like, it's
Yeah.
completely worth that. Overall, it's fun.
Yeah, at the very least, I can say I had fun reading it. I appreciated reading it, and I adore Murphy art. So, glad I got almost 16 issues of it. Can't complain about it. But the story definitely left me lacking. I think of the we mentioned it earlier, but of the Batman stuff, it does feel somewhat derivative, and for that, it definitely gets negative points. I think for trying to tell an interesting story with these characters, though, I did enjoy the Harley relationships. I did enjoy the Jack Napier premise, and so I think beyond execution, I can't really complain about much. It was fun otherwise.
Yeah, for me, I give it like a solid B. Like I think it's worthwhile. I do like Sean Gordon Murphy's art. I have a friggin' signed Back to the Future print by him
Nice.
on my wall. You can't really see it from here though. I'm a fan. Person be damned, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's a fun story. I think if you like Batman, definitely, especially if you're an animated series fan, that first volume, I think you get a lot out of it. I can't as quite recommend Curse of the White Knight. Like I could recommend Curse of the White Knight is if you're a Sean Gordon Murphy fan or if you like Azrael. Like outside of that, I'm not sure I could recommend it unless you really liked Volume 1 and you just want to keep that story going. But yeah, I think it's solid fun.
Tyler, who would you get if you had to get a villain commission from Sean Gordon Murphy? Who would you get?
Great question.
Because you get the villain
Villain.
specifically, right?
Yeah, I do Marvel villains specifically. I don't. Oof.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a tough one, honestly.
I have a thought.
I have a thought too, and I don't. It's the first one to come into my brain. I don't know why. But it's Abomination.
Oh,
That'd be pretty good.
Oh, that's
I
pretty good.
liked his Killer Croc in this, so I think he could do something weird with an Abomination. But also in my head, I'm like, it's got to be something with motion. I feel
Yeah, kinetic.
dude, I was thinking the Hood.
the Hood would be
Interesting.
good.
I was thinking Silver Samurai.
Huh.
Oh.
Oh, I see that. With the Azrael.
I'm
stuff.
also like
Yeah.
thinking of like things that I don't already have. So like,
You have a Hood already?
Yeah, Silver Samurai.
I don't
of
have the
course.
Hood actually. I know I don't have the. I definitely don't have Silver Samurai. Like Sabretooth could be good, but like I have a Sabretooth already. So
Yeah, I would say that the first volume is really good. I think if you're open to maybe not different interpretations than have ever been done before of Batman, but just different than what main Batman looks like right now and at the time, then this might be for you. If you really like if this is gonna not sound good, but if you like the Zack Snyder movies, then I think this version of Batman will appeal to you. There is DNA there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's Joker in a new form. It's a lot of really good Harley Quinn and phenomenal art. Curse of White Knight is not great, but Azrael is very badass, and the fight scenes in this one are fantastic. I have read some of the Beyond the White Knight and some of Harley, and they're both quite good. So I feel like it picks up after this, after where we left off, and maybe one day we'll do those. But yeah, I think they're fun. I think they're fun, and they're just interesting enough to not make me feel like I have to absolutely turn my brain off, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
yeah.
I appreciate reading it. It was fun at the very least.
I'm glad. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad that a Batman book that's not, one of the like most celebrated of all time was able to, pass on the book club.
I feel like any Batman book like that would likely pass. Like there can't be terrible runs, right?
Ooh.
My
Oh,
man.
is that? Oh no, is that a challenge?
Pre Morrison, there wasn't like a ton. Ed Brubaker had some Batman stuff. I didn't think much of it. I went back and read some of that
Brubaker?
stuff. Yeah,
His
I don't know. I just
GCPD
didn't
stuff
think it
is much
worked.
better.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't think that was too good. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like prior to Morrison, Batman had obviously some phenomenal runs, but I think there had been a streak of some less than phenomenal stuff closer to that.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for voting. If you were one of the fine folks over on patreon.com/thecomics who chose this, every single month we allow our listeners over there to choose between several options curated by us. And this upcoming month, well, I'm saying that, but by the time you guys hear this, the voting will be over. We did Halloween as the theme. So the next book club will either be Razor Blades by James Tinian and many phenomenal creators, Nailbiter by Joshua Williamson and Mike Henderson, or it's going to be Blackest Night by Jeff Johns and Ivan Reese, I believe.
Yep, the blackest thing Jeff Johns ever wrote.
Damn.
So hopefully you guys will join us for that. Let us know what you thought of this. There are so many ways to communicate with us all over the internet. We are the Comics Pals. Listen to our main show, which is live on Twitch every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern and gets uploaded everywhere else on Mondays, every single Monday. And you can listen to our review show, Pals Pulls, where we talk about single issues that drop every single week. And we allow listeners of all kinds to vote on that. You can leave us a comment any week, anywhere, and let us know what you want us to read. Maybe we'll do it. That's live at 6 p.m. Eastern on every Thursday on Twitch and goes live everywhere else, hits platforms Fridays. With that, thank you so much for listening. Until the next book club, we're the Comics Pals signing off. Take care, guys.
See you next month.